sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. I want you to listen today because I'm going to tell you a very, very personal story about anxiety, depression, ADHD. All those things are related inside of me anyway. And this may be one of those stories where you may say, I don't believe I'd have told that. But I feel like it's something that I want to share with the audience because maybe somebody out there has been dealing with the same thing. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine killed himself. And everybody at the funeral, it was such a sad thing. He's a father, couple of beautiful girls, beautiful wife, apparently done well at work, made plenty of money. And one day he just didn't come home. And they found him. He killed himself. And it was desperately sad. And the funeral was as sad as any I've ever been to. Because people are like, why? What happened? If I'd only known. And then you hear people say, I don't understand how somebody could do that. I mean, how selfish. You hear these things, right? And how could somebody do that? Well, I was in a particularly bad place at the time. It's probably 5 years ago. I'm struggling financially. My wife and I are having a hard time. My kids are at a difficult age. And as I sat in that funeral, I'd never had this feeling before. But when somebody said to me, how in the world could they do that? How selfish. I thought to myself, I know exactly how they could do that and why they would do that. And it scared the shit out of me. Because for the first time, I was on the edge and I could totally see how somebody could decide this needed to be the last day of their life. Scared the shit out of me. My story with anxiety and depression started, recognized about 15, 16 years before, where I'd come back from a trip where I had the best time. I was with a bunch of buddies. We had a wonderful time, and I came back, but I was deeply depressed. I didn't know what that was. I just knew that when I came back and I was getting back into the world, I felt like every day I started way below par. I felt shitty. And that's the thing. It's not just this feeling sad, which is true, but also I physically felt bad. It's mental illness, but you physically feel badly. I felt like I was drowning a bunch of times, that I had to work like hell just to get up so that I was okay. And every day I worked hard at that, but it got harder and harder and harder. I think the thing that triggered it was having some terrible back pain. Some of y'all that know me for a while know that I dealt a lot with some back problems years ago, I think probably caused by stress. And the everyday pain was brutal. It was horrible. And there wasn't anything, I could take pain pills, but pain pills suck. They have all kinds of side effects. I didn't want to be on that stuff. And really, it didn't really help. And so after living with that pain for 4, 5, 6 months, all of a sudden it was like it wore on me and I was angry all the time and I was frustrated, right? And I began to feel more and more alone, which sucks because I don't have many friends, but I enjoy being around people. And what I found was I didn't enjoy being around people, or I began to believe that maybe nobody gave a shit, nobody understood. But that's the things that just come to my mind, right? And so I went to go talk to, I would tell my wife, I feel like shit. I can't seem to, I don't feel like I'm worthy. And I feel like, nothing's fun anymore. I don't see the joy in life anymore. And it's weird. I wanted her to say, hey, why don't you go to the doctor? Sounds like you've got something that's real. Sounds like something you need to address. And so the first 4 or 5 times I told her, I really wanted to hear that. And, she wasn't there. I love my wife. She just didn't know what was going on inside my head. And so anyway, finally, after the, 4th or 5th time I mentioned how bad it was, she said, I didn't, I hear what you're saying, Walker. And she said, I've had some friends go this too. She said, why don't you go to the doctor? Why don't you go see if your primary care physician, Fred, my primary care physician, see if he can offer some advice. See if maybe there's something he can do. So I went to go see him, and he gave me some medicine. I didn't put much hope in it. He said, here's something that can help you feel better. Right? It's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. And so I got on the medicine, and it's amazing. I started to feel better. Right? It took a while for us, but all of a sudden I would wake up and I would start to feel better. And over time, it got better and better and better. And I'm neither advocating or not medicine for you. But here's what and I don't know anything clinically about this anxiety depression thing. I just know what I've experienced. But it's weird that one of the best cures for this that people say, right, is get outside. Do exercise, lift weights, go work on yourself. The problem with that advice, I found, for me, was that I didn't want to do that. I physically felt like I couldn't do that. And so when I went to the doctor and I explained, and I won't say I'm stoic. I'm not stoic, but I try not to complain about stuff. My life philosophy is, if I'm going through something bad, what I need to be able to do is, as long as I can make a joke about it, as long as I can laugh about it and maybe make somebody else laugh at what I'm going through, I'm going to be okay. That's my lens. And at this point, I could not make a joke about it. And I went to go see my doctor, as I said, and I cried. I'm not, I cry from time to time. I'm just going to say I'm rather sensitive, right? But I really freaking cried. And I told him I was nervous. He said, have you thought about killing yourself? I said, no. But I've begun to understand how other people could do that. Begun to understand. And so he put me in this medicine, and sure enough, 4 to 6 weeks later, I felt like a whole new person. So, and then I could start to exercise again, and then I could get outside again, and then I could go do the things that would help me, right? Then I could begin to focus more at work, not be awake in the middle of the night worrying what the hell is going to happen in my life. Because in my view, maybe I'm just crazy, but I see life often as mostly chaos, interrupted with, moments, periods of time of joy. But the majority of the time is freaking chaos. I'm managing chaos. I don't know if you feel that way or not. You're probably saying, Walker, why the fuck are you sharing all this stuff? Here's why I'm sharing it. Because this is nothing new, but I think the pandemic has put so much stress on people. Your job has changed. Your family has had pressure on it. We're not able to, some days it feels better than others, right? We're finally able to get out and see people again, but everything has changed. I have more things to worry about. And I had 2 clients in the last week call me, and they have said, man, I just can't seem to get it done. I don't feel like myself anymore. Or this one guy in particular, one of my favorites, right? I've been working with him for like 10 years. And he is somebody with big ambitions and big dreams, and he's smart enough to fulfill them, to make it happen. But he's gotten the shit kicked out of him. And he said, it feels different this time. He goes, I just wonder if I'm even worth it. I just wonder if it makes, if I even was just dreaming too big, because I don't think I can do that. And we talked about it for a while. And I said, have you thought about talking to a doctor? He said, yeah, I just didn't know if that's the right step. And I said, here's the thing. The worst thing the doctor can say is, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But my guess is he can put you on some medicine or give you a course to help you get out of this funk. He said, I don't want to be on medicine the rest of my life. I said, then don't be on medicine the rest of your life. I said, what if you maybe this is a phase, and maybe you get on the medicine and it helps you, and then whatever it is, 6 months, a year from now, you can wean yourself off with the doctor's help, but get through this period of time. I guess, and he said, I'm going to go do that. And I thought, sometimes we don't have somebody to talk to. Sometimes we sit here and wonder, is there something wrong with me? Or I'm just having an awful time and it's impacting your life, right? And your family's impacted by it. I mean, God, my family, bless their hearts, with all the shit we were going through, and then to have me in a bad way, it sucked. Can't imagine. I love them even, so much for putting up with all that stuff. But what it meant to them was I was grumpy all the time. What it meant to them was I wasn't sleeping, which made me more grumpy. And I wasn't exercising, which made me more grumpy. Right? And I made my circle of friends, or circle of people I hung out with, get smaller and smaller and smaller, until finally I just began to believe I really didn't have any close friends. This is not something, and I've heard people say, not to me, but to other people, you just need to snap out of it. Go have some fun. And the weird thing is, you just can't, somebody who's dealing with this shit just can't snap out of it. Can't just go have some fun because nothing feels like fun. If you're dealing with this, if you're struggling with this, if you're wondering what your value is in the world and why are you even here, and maybe you're more of a burden on your family than you should be. And sometimes this stuff can be brought on by events. It can happen because something terrible is going on. Maybe it's bankruptcy. Maybe it's you've lost a big deal. Maybe you're struggling in your marriage. Maybe your kids are in some kind of chaos or trouble. Maybe work just sucks or feels like it sucks right now. It's easy to get in this downward spiral. I guess I want to encourage you, if you're going through some of that, you're feeling some of that, go get help. Go talk to your doctor. Start with your primary doctor. Go to a psychiatrist if you have one. Go tell them the story. My guess is that a vast, majority, I got no idea, I only know my experience, but that a lot of people from in their life through periods of time go through this shitty stuff, and you feel like you're failing, and you feel like you're not worth it, and you feel like things suck and they're never going to get better. You feel like you're stuck in the mud. Go talk to your doctor. Go talk to a therapist. Get some help. Your friends often won't know what to tell you to do. Go see your doctor. If you have a friend that you sense is going through an awful time, right? And you sense that they have anxiety, and this manifests itself in different ways. I remember part of the thing that I struggled with anxiety was that I didn't know what to do because I was afraid of what would happen if I did anything. Almost every decision was a struggle for me, even in the places that didn't matter. My wife would say, "Where do you want to go to dinner?" And I just couldn't figure it out. All this stuff was not something I could just shake on my own, and I couldn't even get up high enough, like I said, to go do exercise to get out of it. Sometimes it's the medicine that gives you the lift, that can allow you to do the self-help things, the exercise, get outdoors, lifting weights, do things to help build yourself, to help different chemicals get released in your brain. This is not a weakness or a failure on your part. This is just part of what you're having to go through, like having some other kind of problem, right? Some other kind of physical ailment. A lot of times people think, they're embarrassed about some sort of mental illness. It's part of life, man. I look back and I see that both my parents dealt with this. I don't know that they knew what it was called, but I know they dealt with this shit. So somebody comes to you and starts to share things like that, please, please, please. I guess number one is listen. Listen to them so they feel understood. And the advice that you should offer is, hey, have you gone to see your doctor? Have you talked to a therapist? Have you talked to a professional about this? And encourage them to go do that, because there's help out there. When I started treating my ADHD, again, I probably had 5 or 6 bouts of pretty severe depression. When I started treating my ADHD, after I kind of got that under control, all of a sudden the depression came out and anxiety came out beyond it. ADHD had been masking it. Right, so once again, I went back to the doctor to get on some different medication, and it helped me tremendously. I picture my brain, and maybe you do the same, right? Is like a high-powered sports car, and that it's awesome, right? And it could be a great tool and super helpful, but you got to keep it tuned the right way, right? Or you end up in a damn ditch. Mental health is a real thing. Being depressed, anxious, where you're worried about everything, where you can't make decisions, where you're afraid, where you're up and your heart's racing. I mean, it's crippling. But there is help out there. But sometimes you've got to get some chemical help in order to do the physical things that you're also going to need to do to get better. That's been the case with me. If you're struggling with some of this stuff, or you know somebody that is, understand they're not. I want them to know, I want you to know you're not the only one. And there are pressures that have been put on us in your life as you grow older and dealing with all these other things, as life gets more complex and things sometimes go in the toilet. Sometimes it's more than just shake it off. Go to an expert, go to a therapist, go to your doctor, go to somebody and say, I don't know what to do. Can you please help me? To those of you who are out there in sales, it's hard. You know, as some people ask me, when does this stuff get easier? When is this going to be easier? And I'll tell you, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, when am I going to get better at it? How do I get better at it? Life is hard as hell. Sales is hard as hell. Both can be extremely rewarding, but we got to show up with our full selves in both things. Got to show up with our full selves and be present and be open. And sometimes with depression, anxiety, ADHD, we're not able to do that. So if you know somebody that's struggling with this, have patience with them. Encourage them to go get help. If it's you yourself, have patience with yourself. Know that this is a phase. Go see your doctor to get through the phase, so that you can get back up on top to be your real self. We all want to be our real selves. Nobody wants to feel shitty. Nobody wants to feel like they're drowning. Go get help. If you're feeling really desperate, reach out to somebody. Tell them, because the saddest thing is when your friends, somebody has hurt themselves and you say, if only I'd known, if only I'd known. I'm Walker McKay with No BS Sales. If you know somebody needs to hear this, share it. If you have not subscribed to my podcast, please do. Rate it 5 stars. Help me rise up in the rankings. We're growing and growing. Thank you so much, No BS Sales team, for listening. I appreciate what you do for me. I get a lot of good stuff from this podcast. I've made a lot of good connections from this podcast. I get great. Thank you all for what you tell me and what you share with me. If this thing has helped one person today, it'll be worth my spilling my guts. I'm Walker McKay with No BS Sales School. Be well.
Thanks for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast. If you haven't already, please take 1 minute to write a quick review for the show. It really does make a huge difference. Also, subscribe to the show and please forward this episode to somebody else who needs to hear it. As a bonus for listening, I'm going to give you access to a free mini course, 7 expensive sales mistakes you're making and what you can do about it. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com and get access to the free mini course. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast.